Autism. Autism is one of a group of disorders known as autism spectrum disorders, ASD.
Be the first to respond. Autism to awesome. Be the first to respond. Autism to awesome.
My name is Kerry Brooks, and this is Autism to Awesome, where we train the world to be first to respond. Today, we have three amazing guests that's going to share information with you regarding autism, special intervention training techniques. They all have someone that they're caring for, that they're raising, that's on the spectrum. So you're going to get different perspectives, different highlights, if you will, as to some of the special intervention techniques that they use to help get them through today, coping skills, life skills, and help their child to go ahead to succeed. So what we're going to do is allow our guests to introduce themselves. We'll start with Ms. Yalonda, and then we'll go around, and then we will go from there. The typical schedule for today is we'll allow our guests to introduce themselves. I will come back and tell you a little bit more about me, and then we'll ask each guest a questions as to how do they get into educating and learning about autism, and then we'll find out any special intervention training techniques that they use as well. And then we'll have along the way in between, we'll do a couple of questions. We do have about 5 or so gifts for giveaways. So we'll be asking questions, so please pay attention. We'll be asking questions that you can win a prize. And then we'll open up the dialogue to the open forum in the chat room. If you have any questions, place them in the chat room. We'll try to get to as many as we can. And then we will end the discussion for today. Again, I apologize about any of the technical difficulties that we're having. Sometimes they're just the way it is, but we have people in the chat room, and we're just gonna try to do our best to stay on task and keep going. So Ms. Yalonda, please tell us who you are, tell us how you got involved with autism, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll move on to the next person after that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yalonda Smith. I am the Life Coach Navigator, where I am a certified life coach. I help parents with special needs children as well as network marketing coaching. I have a 3-year-old who was diagnosed with autism at 18 months, and that's how I got involved with autism.
Let me ask you a question, Yalonda. So if anyone wanted to contact you, how would they go about finding you? I want to put this out at the top of the program, just in case people do have to break away. I want them to be able to understand where can they locate you, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram or Facebook at the Life Coach Navigator, or they can contact me by email at contact@thelifecoachnavigator.
Okay, thank you. So next we have Miss Jamie. So Miss Jamie, please tell us a little about yourself, where people can find you, and how did you get involved with autism?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jamie Upshaw, and I am the founder and executive director of Autism Urban Connections, Inc., located here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We provide support, resources, education, and to parents and caregivers of those raising those on the spectrum and related disorders. How you can contact me is our phone number is 412-812-3091, or you can find us at www.aucofpgh.org, or you can contact us at info@aucofpgh.org. And I became involved with autism because I have a now 10-year-old who was diagnosed at 3 years and 7 months, which is fairly late, and which got me into the advocacy role and the supporting role fairly early in the game, so that I can help families navigate the process a little bit easier than I did.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate you sharing that information with us. And we have another guest with us, make a total of 3. Tara, can you tell us a little about yourself and how you got started being an advocacy and a coach in autism?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. My name is Tara Wallace, and I have a 22-year-old who was diagnosed with Asperger at the time in the 2nd grade. So he was late in the game as well. I became a social worker as a result of that, and I work with parents. I help them navigate getting diagnosis. I'm a clinical social worker now. I attend meetings with parents, help them, as I said, navigate the world, understanding the diagnosis and everything. I can be reached on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. It's public, so you don't have to have an actual Facebook page to find me. It's TD Wallace, WALLACE, and you can just search me and leave me a message there, and that's how you can connect with me.
Thank you for sharing that information, Tara. And my name is Kerry Brooks, and my son was diagnosed with autism around the age of 2, 2.5, going on 3 years old. That's how I got involved with autism. At the time, the doctor told us that there was nothing that we could do for our son. He actually told us to just basically focus on having other children and prepare our son for a group home. I understand that some individuals do live in a group home, but our son was very young. We just thought that we could do something for him to help him along the way. And we were able to develop some strategies, special intervention training techniques, where he graduated with honors from high school. And now he's enrolled in college and doing extremely well. So this is, my passion. I never look for anything. I know people had trouble logging in, so did I, but I don't look for things to go right. I look for how can we solve things? What can we do to solve things, at the end of the day, because that's where you learn the most. That's where you learn the most. So that's how I got involved with autism and have these intelligent ladies here today. I appreciate you guys participating. I appreciate the audience for tuning in. Share this with your friends and everyone else. And, we know that according to the CDC that, autism is a developmental disability that can significantly affect social communication and behavioral challenges. We also know, according to the CDC, that's the Center for Disease Control, that it affects boys 4 to 5 times more so than it does girls. So ladies, we know that everyone on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, that's why we have an autism spectrum disorder, is different. So Yalonda, starting with you, tell us, what did it look like for you when you first started, whatever you noticed in your child, what did it look like to you? Because everyone is different.
Yes, it first started when my son, when he was younger, he was doing the normal things, is trying to talk, trying to crawl and walk, and it just all of a sudden his walking became, he didn't walk like normal, like at the age where they say they normally walk at and where they normally crawl at. And I really didn't look at it as anything at that point, because I know some kids walk and crawl later. So, but then he started speaking. He was talking a little bit. He was saying little words. And then all of a sudden, his words went backwards. Like he wasn't saying anything at all. He was babbling a lot. And when he was lining up cars and everything, I never knew it had anything to do with autism. He would take the pots and pans out of the cabinets in the kitchen, and he would line them up from smallest to largest. Like he was doing little things like that. And me and my husband, we started researching things that he was doing, because he was, once he did start walking, he didn't have a balance. He couldn't balance himself. He couldn't go up and down stairs. As someone that learned how to walk does, and he was like struggling a little bit. So we was researching everything, and that's the first time we ever seen the word autism. Though we heard the word, we never knew what it was, but that's how we came to it as far as autism.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Thank you very much. So Jamie, tell us, what did you start noticing? How did you first started getting into asking the question about, autism as well?
So with my son, he hit all his milestones. He was actually a little bit advanced, in my opinion. However, he had a lot of self-injurious behaviors. He was banging his head and banging his feet, and he was lining up things, and things had to be in certain order, certain colors had to be with certain colors. So there were a lot of things that I was noticing about his behaviors. And so when I brought it to the attention of the doctor with the self-injurious behaviors, because he was also being aggressive toward other people, they basically just told me, oh no, it's just terrible twos, treacherous threes, you know. And I'm like, no, it's a little bit more than that. He's doing, yeah, he's like terrorizing the house, you know. So, you know, so I did my research, which I wasn't, I was already educated. I had already had a master's degree. I had already taken psychology classes, so I kind of knew what I was looking at. I just was kind of a little in denial about it, but what I did my research, that was the word I kept coming back to, was autism. And so I finally got with the right person. The right person finally heard me and recommended that he got an evaluation, and we got an incorrect diagnosis. However, it led us to getting services that led us to getting the correct diagnosis. So that's how we got involved in autism.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And Tara, can you tell us how your journey started as well?
I'm a little bit of Jamie's story and a little bit of Yalonda's, kind of a combination, but in hindsight, he met milestones, not a lot of talking, but like I said, in hindsight, he was quirky, but he could read at 2. And I remember one of my cousins used to call him Professor, and to this day he calls him Professor. And once we figured out that he was reading, we recognized that he could read, but he wasn't comprehending what he was reading. So he could read something to you, but he couldn't tell you what it meant completely, unless it was something simple. Like he could read the word star, but he couldn't, well, yes, he could, because astronomy was one of his things. He could tell you all about astronomy, but he couldn't tell you in context what other things that he read meant. So it just depended. But he was had the meltdowns and things like that. So behaviorally, he was fixated on Barney and Elmo. Rocks. When I did laundry, if I did not check his pockets, there were always rocks in the bottom of the washing machine. So it was those kind of things. He had those obsessions.
You mentioned meltdown. I think Jamie mentioned, you know, he was terrorizing the house. You know, in the book, I write about, you know, meltdowns, and people go, you know, ask, you know, what are those? I tell them it's like a temper tantrum on steroids, because our son will have these meltdowns 10 minutes to 45 minutes. And we were like, what is going on? This is not terrible twos or anything. This is something else. I never even heard of this before. And so, you know, we started trying to, you know, he was having the meltdowns. We started trying to find out what was causing those. Could we prevent those? Could we make them last, you know, less, you know, than they were lasting? And also our son was speaking as well, and he started to regress in words as well. He regressed down to 2 words, had a lot of allergies, was allergic to a lot of different foods. So he was down to very minimal, eating very minimal. And so we had a long, long journey ahead of us. He wasn't sleeping hardly at all. So that's why I'm glad to have you ladies here today, because I know that you guys are on the journey, have come a long way on the journey to share with other people. How did you cope with this? Because it's not easy, but it's possible. And if you have people who've gone through it that can provide strategy for you, it can make it a lot easier. So Yalonda, I would like to ask you, and all the ladies, but I'll start with you. When you started educating yourself, and started getting into, I would say, some type of groove that you knew what you wanted to do. Tell me one of the things that stands out to you that was a specific special intervention technique that you used that worked for you, for your child.
What works for my child? My child is only 3, so I don't have the good experience like Jamie and Miss Tara here, but I do my what I do, when I take him to speech therapy, when I take him to all the therapists, I sit there and I learn from them. So I take what they do and I bring it home with me. I have to learn how to schedule my day as if something is going to happen, because it might and it might not, but I want to be prepared for it if it does. So if he does have a meltdown, he haven't had really too many meltdowns, but maybe it has been some days where it take me from work where he's, it lasts like 45 minutes, but it's not like often that I know, okay, this the day is happening, so I have to be prepared for it. So I kind of prepare myself every day as if it's going to happen. So I basically I try to comfort him. Sometimes I feel like it's nothing I can do. Yeah, I do share tears, but I have, as a mom, I have to get through it with him. If I have to sit there on the floor with him, whatever it is with his tantrums, I have to sit there with it. But I do take what the speech therapists, the OT therapist, all the therapists that he goes to, I do sit there and I try to learn their techniques and bring it home with me.
So basically what they're doing is you watch them and end up being like a trainer type thing. You take the information home with you, because I know a lot of time when people do get services, especially starting out and depending on which state you're in, those services can be very limited. Sometimes where the therapist, if they are coming into the home, it may only be for, 3 hours a week. Sometimes I know those services can be very limited. Yes. So Jamie, share with us one of the special techniques that you have learned that work with your child as well to help you get through the day and help him get through the day.
Well, we have a few things. Like I said, he's 10. We've been through the ringer. He still has significant meltdowns. He's still self-injurious. So we use a lot of breathing techniques breathing techniques seem to work for him. The breathing, the counting, and then he's really, really big on football. So anything related to football, I can kind of just like grab his attention with something football, and we can do something, related to that. So it's like finding their specific interests, and then grabbing onto their specific interests, and then trying to go ahead to make interventions around that. And so that's pretty much what we do. We do a lot of breathing, and he has services that come in. He has a behavioral specialist that comes in. He has a mobile therapist that comes in. We all work together on drawing up interventions for him so that we can go ahead and he can try to be successful.
Can you quickly walk me through how did you learn about the breathing technique, and can you describe to me how do you started with your son to help him calm down and get back on track?
Yes. So I learned about the breathing techniques through us going through therapy. He's been in therapy for a few years now. And it's just something that I learned to do for myself as well, to calm myself down. And I noticed that it works for me. So I figured, let me try and see if we can get this to work for him. Usually it takes me a minute to get him focused. It's not something that happens right off the bat. It takes me a minute to get him focused, to look at me, to take the time to start breathing. So it's just like talking him through it, trying to talk him through what's going on, talk him through what the problem is, or find out what the issue is, and basically start from there. We start from there, and then I can get him to breathe in, and he starts breathing, and then we start counting, and we breathe and we count, and we breathe and we count, and it gets him back to reality.
Thank you for sharing that. And Tara, tell us one of the techniques that you use to help get your son back on track, maybe after he's having a meltdown, or one of the things that you find that just works really well for him.
I'm like Jamie. One of the things that really, really worked for him was something that he could keep with him. You know, the balloons that come with the long string, and when you blow it up, you tie it up, and it's the punching balloon. That was really good for him. Number one, because it's durable, and number two, it's hard to blow. And it takes a lot of focus, and it takes a lot of energy. So he had that in his pocket. It was something he could keep in his pocket. So he could pull that out and blow that balloon. And he has to focus on that balloon. And if you've, even as an adult, if you have tried to blow one of those balloons up, you really have to work at it. And so he would keep one, his teacher would keep one. And once he was able to remember his balloon, he could pull that out and blow that balloon and blow it up. And this little kid, this little skinny kid, because he only weighed $105 soaking wet, was blowing, you know, his cheeks are real big and he's blowing on this balloon and all of his energy is going trying to get that balloon to blow up. And the thing was to see how big he could get it. And if you can draw lines on that balloon, you can see how many lines he can get to expand. And so that was the thing for him to get him calm. How many lines did you get? Because the more lines he got to expand, the more excited he got about calming and focusing on that balloon. The other thing that helped was the consistency and the routine, because usually it was something that was a change that would trigger a meltdown for him every morning, every single morning, because he rarely had meltdowns outside of school. So every single day when I dropped him off, I would get to my job and send an email to his teacher. If his teacher was going to be gone, I would send it to the principal or the assistant principal, who would send it to the substitute teacher. I would send an email with a word of the day, and he would go to that individual and they would read the email with him. And it was kind of a have a good day. This is your word of the day. This is what you're going to focus on. And I still have those emails. My son is 22 years old, and I still have all of those emails because I had a separate email account just for him because I had so many emails related to his stuff that it was just overwhelming my email because I was in school. And so every single day I would send an email. So that was one of the things that he had, plus the balloon. So he had those things consistently. But if something happened that was beyond our control, automatically we knew something was going to happen. I was going to get a phone call because his schedule changed. So it was the email wasn't going to work and the balloon wasn't going to work. So we just had to brace ourselves for that meltdown coming.
I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. One of the things that I found out, because I played sports in high school and all throughout college, and I was hopeful that my son would play sports as well. And when we got the diagnosis, you know, we knew it was going to be a challenge all the way. But one thing that I found out, and I started a program called Balling for Autism, is that sports has really helped him. I started coaching him probably when he was 6 years old, all the way through high school. And I told him that he was good, but if you compare him to other kids, he wasn't that good. But what I was looking for was the effort. That's what I was looking for, the effort that he put in. And if I could get him to focus on dribbling, passing the ball to others, and staying engaged, I knew we could work on his social skills, his communication skills, his confidence. And if he can do that on the basketball court, on the soccer field, that can translate to the classroom, in which that's exactly what it did. So I'm a big proponent of sports, not so much for the competition, but for the learning. And also what I like about sports is that a lot of times people are reluctant to take our kids out in public because of meltdowns. And I understand, and rightly so. I was there. Trust me, no one wants to be in the middle of a store and your kid have this temper tantrum, this meltdown that seemed like it would never end. And everyone is looking at you like, oh, you must be a bad parent. What are you doing to that child? So I get it. Trust me, I get it. So what I found though was that with sports, you know, they became less because I found something that he could really be engaged in. And also in sports is that you never know what's going to happen. He may take a shot in basketball, he may miss it. Well, you don't have time to be upset. You have to go and get the rebound. So it started helping him to adapt to change, to slowly start adapting to change, because for my son in particular, he loves a good routine. He loves routine. And I needed him to be able to change when it came time to change classes. If the day changed at school, I needed for him to be able to go with the flow, be able to go with the flow. And it took some time to get there, but we eventually got there.